Hi everybody, it's Leon with Wide Awake Productions. Thanks for joining today again on part 2 of doing up your emotional timeline. Just before we get started today, I want to point out a book. Kate was gracious enough to share it with me this week, and it's called It Didn't Start With You. And kind of what it's talking about is by Mark Wollin, W-O-L-L-I-N. So if you're not reading anything, you may want to take a breeze through it. It looks back on the idea that how you inherit a lot of your family trauma and you're not even aware that you carry it in your body. Because I've mentioned in the past, you know, we're not just dealing with what's happening today, we're dealing with multi-generational patterns that have been put in us by subconscious environments that we've absorbed these ideas and rules about ourselves. So if you get a chance to check it out, it'll help you understand how you get shaped the way you are as well. And if you don't mind, if you do read it, leave a little comment below about what you thought about the book and whether or not you'd recommend it as well, what you found helpful and what you wish they would have expanded on. Okay, so on that note, I want to talk to you about something else here, and that is basically, why are we doing emotional timelines? Emotional timelines, if you don't do an emotional timeline, you can't go back and really observe your life for your own sake to understand what emotionally happened to you. Most people, you know, if you talk to them about their past and stuff, they'll pull out topics and ideas and incidents that happened to them, and that's kind of your memory part of it. But there's another side of your memory that we don't connect with, which is emotionally, what did we give up because of those situations that we're in. And so it always amazes me, I might get a little weepy here, but honestly it really amazes me. You are the most important thing in your life. You're the only constant you have is you. You're the only thing that came into the world with, and it's the only thing you're going to leave with is you. And the idea of our culture and how it keeps us so busy, so distracted, that we lose sense that we have great value and great worth. It makes it tough for us to do something like this because you get triggered. Or you're worried about getting triggered. I can guarantee you after you get into it, you're going to get your power back. You start feeling your power back because you start feeling your history back and you start understanding certain things about things. I always struggle with doing these bloody videos because I know I'm dealing with 5-second cat videos, 2-minute cutesy dootsy dog videos, little baby videos, and I'm an educator. There's no way you're going to learn about yourself if I do a 20-minute video. I try to do some of those on Quick Thoughts, but the idea about this kind of exercise, it's because of your value that you do it. And when you can see it outside of your mind on a whiteboard, and you understand the history and you understand the emotional impacts it's had on you, but you're not subjectively, and in other words, subjective truth is from the inside out of your perceptions, you can see it objectively outside of yourself, your history outside of your body, so your body doesn't react to it. You start to bring new tools back into your mind and into your body to actually understand what happened and what happened to those people that may be perpetrated on you. So I mentioned in the past, you know, as soon as you're born, the weird thing about just being bloody born on the planet is you are outgunned unless your environment happens to have a couple of important things in the formula. Healthy parents, whatever healthy parents, solid adults around you. If you don't have that, then your parents can only give what they got. And if they came out of a pretty bad background, they have a huge bunch of deficits. So if you need certain needs met, it's going to trigger them, and they're not going to know how to respond to it. So they're going to come out either lashing at you, denying whatever you're trying to say to them, and it's pretty complicated. So I'm going to have to give myself a bit permission, which is, I'm not sure how long this video is going to be, but you're worth it. And I'm worth it. And I've spent hours doing emotional histories with people and also with myself. And that's the best way of really understanding what exactly happened to me. Because the look I'm looking to search for is my sense of self. And most of my life, I haven't done any of that. So being abused as a little baby, sexually abused as a little baby, born into a military alcoholic, raging alcoholic family, it made it pretty difficult. And that's just the beginning, how I started. I still have to get through these years where vocabulary was used to me as if I was a dog. And literally, I didn't know I was a human being. Now, I know that might sound a little whacked out. Some of my family members say, what are you talking about? But literally, everything I kept hearing coming back to me was the same statements you'd say to a dog. Get out of here. Go on. And I'm young. I've only been on the planet maybe 2 years. 2 bloody years. And I'm in isolation and loneliness already. And I'm trying to figure out how to fit in. So, listen, I don't know how to tell it to you any deeper than this. That you have great value. I know you might not feel your worth, but that has never stopped you from having worth. So I'm going to spend the worthwhile time to give you these videos that I do, not just for you, but for me, because we're looking for allies. I'm not here to be your therapist. I'm not here to be your counselor. I'm here looking for allies to do a movement, not to fix people, but to believe in people. And I want you to start doing the same thing. Okay, so welcome back. I decided what I'm going to do is actually I filled out a lot more stuff on my emotional history here, so you guys can sense the rhythm I get into when I'm doing up a board like this. So you'll also start noticing a rhythm that you start developing as you do this, and you'll start noticing more information coming up, and after a while this board will be pretty full by the time you're done. Later on in the video, I'm going to ask you to add more things to the first level of history that you put, and they're not monsters and dragons and demons oh my things. They're strange things, okay? So strange things that you had happen to you, perceptual things that happened to you, but we're not talking about monsters and dragons and demons oh my. We're not talking about trauma, traumatic experiences. That won't be for 2 more videos yet. So right now, I'm going to give you kind of a history. I'll fill in as many pictures as I can here to keep it kind of, I don't know, mixed up a little bit for you so it keeps your interest in it. Okay? So what I mentioned to you before was I actually was born in Marvel, France, and that's because I was born on a military base, Canadian military base, and lived there till approximately 3 years old. And at 3 years old, we moved from France to Cold Lake, Alberta. And from Cold Lake, Alberta, which is another CFB base, Canadian Forces base, Air Force base, that's kind of where I remember coming to Canada. But remember, I just came from 3 years of a total different culture. And now I'm in a new culture, a new country, and I don't speak the language. I do speak English, but my brain is now wired in French. What's that mean? Well, if you're Canadian, you'll get this. If you ever look at a label of a Canadian product, they have English and French, and you'll notice that the English wording is a lot shorter than a French wording is. Now the problem when you have a French-thinking mind, but you're an English-speaking country, later on as I went to school, I got very what's the word I'm looking for, kind of bad marks when it came to grammar, because my brain kept filling it in as in English words, but in the French style of speaking. So my things were all switched around. But nobody caught on to that. They just thought I had something kind of wrong with the way I was thinking. But my brain was been wired, as I've told you guys in class, my brain's wired a little backwards, which has been a real bonus for me to see things objectively from a different angle than the general public does. So, after we moved to Cold Lake, Alberta, and we got our first dog, and it was a golden retriever named Taffy. And the interesting thing about Taffy was she was kind of my confidant. And I'll share more of this down the road with you as I keep revealing bits of my story. After that, one of the other memories that I wrote on the board, which I think I mentioned the other day, was this whole idea about my first kiss. 5 years old, side of a house. I was 5, she was 5. Didn't know much about kissing, but we thought we'd kiss, so we did the old, oh my, oh. Another interesting thing happened just before I was 5 in Cold Lake was, and this is one of those things that are strange, was I was woken in the middle of the night, almost when I was just about 5, and I was scared. And the reason why I was scared is something woke me up. And when I woke up, there was what I perceived to be a ghost in my room. And I must have screamed out or something because my mom came upstairs and she says, "Are you okay?" And I said, no, there's something in my room. And she could tell that I was really upset and really fearful. So she says, "Well, come downstairs and sleep with me tonight." So I went downstairs with her. I remember going down the stairs with her holding her hand. And we went into their bedroom, my folks' bedroom. I think my dad was working a night shift at the time. And what ended up happening was I'm in the bed. My mom is on my left side of the bed. An apparition came in, just like you would see on the movies or the stories that you've heard about. And it walked right to the end of the bed, and it was standing right in front of me this way. So like it's looking at me the way I'm looking at you on the camera. And all I did was I got my blanket and I put it over my head. The interesting thing about that particular story is that that is kind of one of the first strange perceptional stories that I had that was kind of in the metaphysical world, I guess you can say it. Now, I'm not saying it was a ghost. I'm just telling you these stories because they're strange. Part of the idea about this video, like I mentioned about adding strange stories to it, is when you do your historical timeline is very analytical. So we got to tap down into the mystery of our imagination a bit. And so these kind of strange stories will help you do that. So after that, the other incident I mentioned in my last video was this whole story here, right here, which was watching the moon landing on TV, and I had to get to school, and I ended up being late for school. This is what I mentioned in my last video. And then the weirdest thing happened after I posted that video. I had gotten together with Wayne, who's been a really good friend and good ally for almost 10 years now. And he was watching the video and he kind of had a question mark about this incident here. And the reason why was he as well remembers going to an auditorium. Now, so I think he's about 8 years, maybe 10 years my senior. So I'm 6 at the time. So he's, what, 15, 14, 16, somewhere in there. And he remembers going to an auditorium as well. Now, the weird thing about it, I've remembered this memory since day one, that the narrative in my head is that it was a school day and I got in trouble on that day. But then you look at the empirical evidence of when was the moon landing and when was it shown live. And that was in July 20th, which is a Sunday. 1969. So there's two facts there that my memory banks didn't connect up as being real. And that the first fact is it's in July. I can't be late for school because I'm not in school in July. So this is an interesting insight you get from doing your timeline. Secondly, it was on Sunday. So I wouldn't be going to school on Sunday. So to help me and Wayne out a little bit, if you were around and you're an old senior such as myself, and you remember watching the moon landing, if you leave a little comment below where you watched the moon landing at, and if the area you happen to be raised in during 1969 on July 20th, when you watched it, was there a general area where the public could go to watch it if they didn't have a TV? So help us out with that, help me out with my timeline, help Wayne out with that timeline too, okay? Now, there's another interesting thing that I mentioned, which was when I was 7 in grade 2, I had failed. Now the weird thing about when you do your timeline, you'll notice on my timeline board here I have a couple of things I've added in regards to, you'll notice a red felt marker. That's for kind of the strange stories that I've had. And the other thing I included, and I'd like you to include on your whiteboard too, is also the age you're at, which is the timeline. graphic number. But also I want you to add the year and also the grade, if you can, on your timeline for each of your years. So the other weird thing was when I failed grade 2, something else came to my fore, and this is one of those strange things that happened. And that was in the morning. I woke up, headed over, for some reason I headed over to some friend's place, and again, we're 7 years old, and I'm in the basement with a whole bunch of other kids. I'm not sure why we're all there, other than we know I know it's before school, so my perceptual history says. And the idea was, when we were down in the basement, when I walked down, there was a whole bunch of kids, and they had a lighter and they had newspaper, and they were lighting these fires in the basement. And my dad used to work as a emergency response person on the military base in the fire department. And I kept saying to them, don't do this, it's not good. And they kept putting more paper on it. I'm going, this is not good, it's not good. So there was a little garden hose that was on the wall in the basement and a little tap. So I attached that and I kind of sprayed it down and watered it down. And I said, well, I'm going to go to school, you guys, don't do this, you shouldn't be doing this, blah, 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 blah. And then I go to school. Well, as time progresses, I'm in the classroom, grade 2. I'm in the class, my grade 2 class. There's a knock on the door opens up, and they ask, is Leon Thompson here? And the teacher says, yes. Leon, can you come to the front? So I go to the front, and I look through the door, and who's standing there but 2 military police? And they are arresting me. And why are they arresting me? They're taking me in for questioning, is probably more fair to say. They're taking me in for questioning because when I had left the house, of course the kids that were left there, they didn't listen to what I said, and they ended up starting a fire. And because I wasn't there to describe anything, because I went back to school, they all pointed their finger at me and said I was the one responsible for this, which was crazy stuff. So on top of that, what I ended up having to do was they took me in the military police car, took me down to the police shop, and then they took me and put me in jail at 7 years old. No parents, don't remember my parents being there. And they left me in there, and as they shut the door on the jail cell, you better think of what you said, is what came out of their mouth, and there I am at 7 years old behind a jail cell. Eventually, my parents obviously were contacted. They must have shown up. I think the police felt a little uncomfortable because they realized that I had nothing to do with it. And so they gave me a banana and a military police jacket, which was way too big for me to wear. So I'm not even sure whatever happened to that jacket. So that was another kind of strange thing that happened. At age 8, I moved from CFB Cold Lake to CFB Penhold, which is again another Air Force base. And that was when I kind of had my favorite Christmas, which I showed you in the other video, where I got all this G.I. Joe stuff, it was just spectacular. I think my dad was overcompensating because he was such a bad dad. The thing that happened was I was traveling to Victoria to visit my grandmother, and I thought what I saw was a Sasquatch. And I never told anybody. Well, that's not true. I did tell some people when I first saw it, and I got ridiculed, so I didn't bother telling anybody that. So now my perception was I saw a Sasquatch, and it was a pretty clear day, and it was nice and sunny out, and it wasn't 5 miles away, and it wasn't blurry. Maybe that's my first clue, it wasn't. But on the interesting part of that, too, is the same time when I was on that trip to Victoria, I got hit by a car crossing an intersection with my older brother. And again, I'm only 9 years old at this time. And I crossed the street. We just went and picked up some popsicles, or I picked up a creamsicle, and we crossed the street. My brother ran ahead of me. It said walk, so we weren't doing anything wrong or anything. But on that hillside in Quadra in Victoria, if you guys are there, I think Bruce, you're hanging out in that area. I got hit by this car, threw me 20 yards, dragged me 30 feet. And when that happened, the next thing I remember is this guy coming up, looking at me, so I'm on the ground like this, and if I can find the original, I went back to the microfiche, and I actually got the original front page copy of that, but I don't know what I did with it, so I'll try to post it on here or down the road show you it. I'm laying on the ground like this, and the picture you actually see on the front page is the reporter who comes up with the camera. I just been hit by a car, thrown 20 feet, dragged another 30 feet, and he comes up and he's more focused on getting a picture of me and getting this bloody picture back to the newspaper. Thank goodness there was an older gentleman there who took off his blazer, wrapped it all up, and kind of tucked it into my head to give me comfort till the ambulance arrived. After that, went to the hospital. When I went to the hospital, my brother felt really bad about that for years. I think I talked to him just a couple of years ago. How he felt that it was his fault. It had nothing to do with Vance. It had to do with this guy. And what happened was he had a heart attack. So that's why he went through the green light. And they had asked me at the hospital, would you go see him so he knows you're okay? And of course I said yes to that whole thing. So that's another kind of strange kind of event. There's much more stuff in there, but again, we're just doing surface stuff for right now. But below each of these ideas or topics or events, there's a lot of stuff that's happening, and I picked up in regards to perceptions and rules about life and ideas about life and all that kind of stuff. And I remember when the guy put the coat under my head to kind of comfort me a bit, I think of the first thing that I said out of my mouth is, where's my creamsicle? Typical 9-year-old. But after that, we moved from Canadian Forces Base Penhold when I ended up being 10, and we moved into Red Deer, Alberta, which is a smaller city right by the Air Force Base. And I started to attend West Park Elementary School. And when I attended West Park Elementary School, there was a couple of things that happened. So I went from grade 4 in Penhold to grade 5 in West Park Elementary. Started to have some friends, and that was just kind of a really cool time. And went to a store one time with one of my girlfriends, and she showed me the art of shoplifting. Never shoplifted before in my life, but she showed me what to do is you take a chocolate bar, you put it in your pocket, but you take another chocolate bar and you pay for it at the till. And we did it, and it was successful, and so that's what I did. And of course I didn't just stop there. I thought, this works really good. Every morning I can stop into the store, steal some stuff, go to school, share my giftings with my friends. Except for this one time I got greedy and I had a big winter parka on, and I figured I'd put a whole bunch of potato chips in my jacket, like the bags. And you guys know potato chip bags are not the quietest things on the planet. Did my cool strategy of going in to pay for my chocolate bar. And then the lady says, what about the stuff in your coat? And I went into denial. Said, what are you talking about? I don't have anything in my coat. She goes, you mind opening your coat? And I opened my coat. And lo and behold, I have this whole blitzkrieg of, I think there's 4 or 5 bags of potato chips. There might even been more chocolate bars there. So she had asked me to stand at the end of the till the manager showed up. And there was an old fellow that came in, heard the story. So he stood beside me like this, and all he did was chronically say to everybody, don't be like this guy, this kid's a thief. And I heard that all day, and then eventually met the manager. Manager took me into his office, asked if I ever stole again. Like a good kid, I lied and said, no, I've never done this before. And he says, well, I'll phone your parents if you don't tell me the truth. And I lied again, because by that time, I'm only, what am I now, 10 there. I'm 10 years old. I already got in my head, there's no way you trust anyone with your truth, because it's going to have a huge consequence. And it would have had a huge consequence if he would have phoned my dad. I would have probably been beaten with the belt, more than likely. So the idea about that, what I ended up doing was I just kept lying. I must have lied well enough that he convinced him that I didn't ever steal there. But as a discipline, which I was very thankful, he gave me a consequence for what I did. He got me a hand broom, and I had to go and sweep out this entire shopping plaza's parking lot with the hand broom. And this also included behind the building where all the trucks would come in. So that's another kind of strange thing that I had to negotiate. I never told my folks anything about it, and that was one of my secrets. And we're going to talk about secrets down the road, because we have a lot of secrets that we are still embarrassed with, and that unfortunately we haven't let go of them. And that will especially come in when we talk about monsters, dragons, and demons. Oh my, the trauma stuff that happened to us, where shh, or where the abuser tries to get us to reshape it in some way that it wasn't as bad, or your perception was off on that. Okay, so another thing is I mentioned at 11 I ended up going to the principal's office, and I remember walking down the hall because he thought I was yakking too much behind him when it was actually this other guy, and he was going to take me in to get the strap. And the strap was on your hand, and one of the things kids said, and this is elementary school, I don't know why his kids come up with this, is put a hair across your hand so when he hits you it'll cut your skin and then he'll get in trouble. I'm in trouble already and I didn't even do anything. Now you want me to do something to get me in trouble again that I actually did do? And I'm going to get in real big trouble here. But there must have been something in his eyes that he saw on my face that I was confused with why this was all going down. Because we walked all the way down to the office, and he looked at me and he stopped and he said, watch yourself next time. In grade 6, I moved from West Park Elementary School into West Park Junior High. And in West Park Junior High, I had there's a cluster of really not good experiences. When we were growing up with your peer group, you can probably either being a perpetrator towards those who are different than you, ridiculing them, mocking you, or other people doing that to you, giving you a nickname. So I used to have these moles on my face, and it was pretty shaming for what they did because there was a commercial, and it's still kind of tender a bit. I don't even want to sing it to you. That's my little kid. I don't want to sing that, Leon. I get you, little Leon. We're not going to do that. So, but it was pretty bad because they just kept hounding and hounding and hounding me with this song that my peers had made up. When I moved from West Park Elementary to West Park Junior High, of course, a lot of my friends came with me to that same junior high. So we're in grade 7, and we had a new guy show up that was part of our peers, but from the outside. Never met him before, but he showed up, and that was the first time I met somebody who I felt was evil. And he's in grade 7 with me, so he's a young guy. But there was something about his look. His look was that of looked like pure evil. Every time he looked at me, it was like with pure evil. Later on, now that I'm doing my profession, what I do, he had the look of a sociopath or psychopath. And if you've ever been married to a sociopath, you know that look I'm talking about. If you ever did research on psychopaths, you know that look I'm talking about. It was dead eye look, and with contempt and resentment, and that you deserve to die. It's a strange thing to have as a grade 7er. To actually get introduced to that as a 12-year-old, visually, emotionally, and find my body reacting to something like that. At 13, that was the first time I learned about smoking about marijuana. It's the first time I got a part-time job at this kind of like a Rona or someplace like that, and it was kind of a little bit funny because one of my really close friends at the time, we both got the job together. We were 13. And the boss for the store really took a shine to my friend because he thought he was a hard worker and he did everything he was told and he was doing all this great stuff. But the little fink, what he was doing was, while he was working during the day and cleaning up everything, he also went to the electronics division of the store and took brand new electronics and put them in the garbage, took them outside in the garbage bin and threw them in the garbage bin. And then later on when the store closed, he went back at 6:30 or 7 at night and jumped into the garbage bin and grabbed all those electronics so he had them personally. So I mean, that's definitely kind of a strange story. Now, this is kind of a tough one too, and some of you would view it as part of the Monsters, Dragons, and Demons. I'm going to include that in here, but the reason why I put it in here, it's this one right here in red, is because I forgot about it, which is amazing. I forgot about this. When I first moved to Red Deer, I wasn't in a specific school at the time, but I came across a couple of good neighbor friends, and we became really, really close. And the one friend, his name was David, and he also started working in a gasoline station on what's called Gasoline Alley, which is gas stations. When that happened, he was working one night, and an American came down, and he was driving a Corvette, I believe, filled his tank up with gas, went into the store, got some snacks and stuff, and David, my friend, was working on the other side of the counter, 13 years old, and the next thing I find out later was the guy came out, put a gun to his face, and shot him right in the face, and he died. And that was the first time I was introduced to evil in the world affecting somebody I knew. I was already being abused by this time, but I'm not connecting it yet. I don't have the capacity. Somebody else who I'm really close to is now dead because of an act of murder. The good thing was the RCMP eventually tracked him back down in the States because he went across the border, and he ended up getting life for that. So that's a strange one. Why is it strange? Because it brings up strange feelings about that. Not traumatically, but certainly confusing, certainly fearful. Again, first time ever a source can take my life. That's what I'm interpreting in this as well. So another event that happened, this is another strange one. When I was in grade 7, there was a grade 9er. I'm in grade 7, he's in grade 9, and he did not like me. This guy did not like me at all. My only reason I can figure out why he didn't like me was my brother was ahead of him in school, and because he wasn't part of the jocks. The jocks are sporty people. My brother was more part of a partier and drinkers and smokers. And my brother probably pestered this guy. But now my brother's in high school, and now I show up in junior high. So now I'm stuck in an environment that this guy's going to get vengeance on me. So what he ended up doing was, I was with all my peers and my friends and stuff. This is after school. And we went over to where this playground area was. And I remember this particular guy who used to be in hockey, and he actually played for the NHL. This guy had this hate on me to such a level that he gave me a gonchi pole. If you don't know what a gonchi pole is, most of you guys will know what a gonchi pole is. It's basically when they grab your underwear and pull it all the way over your head and pull it up. And it's not a pleasurable experience. And this guy had a hate on me to such a degree that he didn't just pull it up, he lifted me right off the ground. He was a pretty big hockey player because he was already in the lower leagues by that time. And not only that, they ripped. And I just felt absolutely exposed. That's a strange one. You getting what I'm talking about? It's uncomfortable, it's awkward, it's embarrassing. Who do you talk to? That kind of stuff. Now the reason why we're talking about strange stuff compared to the monsters, dragons, and demons, oh my, the traumatic stuff is there's similarities between when strange things happen to us. Did I go tell my parents? Did I go tell my brother? Who did I go tell? Did I talk to the teachers? I didn't tell any of them that. I'm already trained to shut up. So flip out of that into something good. When I was 14, I got my learner's license. Now the weird thing about going for my learner's license, I already have acute anxiety disorder developing in my body. So just to do a test is too stressful for me. The stress of writing the test is so paralyzing I can't write the test. So I had to do something with that. And I'm not sure how my brain at 14 came up with this, but it was a good strategy for me and it worked. What I figured out was I found out they had 4 tests. So you go and write a test. If you fail it, you did the second test. If you failed that one, you did the third test. If you failed the third one, you do the 4th test. Okay? So the first time I just went to write the test to introduce to my body what that is like to write the test. I didn't care whether I passed or not. I had to do it in increments. So I did that. And of course I failed. Second time I did it, I went in and I failed it by 2 questions. And then I went in again, wrote it, failed it by 1 question, wrote it the 4th time, failed it by one question, but different question. But the nice thing is when I wrote it the fifth time, I knew all the answers, because they give you the answers what should have been correct, and I had all those pieces of paper, so I knew the answers to every single question that was on the test. No matter which test they gave me, I would ace it, and that's exactly what I did. So for me, it wasn't about writing the test to get my driver's or my learner's license. It was about getting the learner's license. And if any of you guys are Star Trek people, I think Captain Picard did the one. I can't even pronounce the stupid thing, so if I get it wrong here, you Trekkie guys, just back off, okay? Just back off. But I think it's called something like the Hiroshi something of Ru or something like that, which is he never liked to lose, so he just changed the programming that was in this no-win situation that he had to do while he was at the academy in Star Trek. So, and he's the only one who passed. So that idea is kind of like what I did in regards to my license. So that's kind of the up bit. Now here's this downer bit again. So that guy who gave me the Gaunchy pole, who used to play in the NHL, he ended up one day, there was a knock at my parents' house. My parents were away that weekend. My brother was downstairs in the basement partying with some of his friends. Remember, this is the brother that is now out of the school. And this guy shows up with this other guy. I can't remember what the other guy's actual name was. So what he ended up doing was, I opened the door, I come outside, because I know this, I'm a little leery of these people, but I don't have the capacity to sense really what's about to happen to me. And the one guy's even bigger than the other, this other guy named Randy. So the bigger guy picks off my glasses, which I thought was kind of weird as it was happening. I remember in my head narrating, you know, why is he taking off my glasses? And while he's taking off my glasses, because he's proceeding to punch me in the face. And he's punching me in the face and beating the hell out of me right in the front doorway of my parents' house. And I don't even know why this is going on. Thank goodness my brother, who was downstairs partying, hears something, so he happens to come upstairs and he says, "Hey everybody, my little brother's getting beat on." Next thing I know, I have this whole entourage of biker, drinker kind of fighters, because the Thompson family is known for fighting, drinking, and hunting. So you know we're pretty edgy in certain parts of our history. So they all came up and right past me, right onto the floor, and everyone had their dukes up and they were leaning forward, ready to go at her. And then I just got up by that time because I was safe, and I said, "Leave him alone, just leave him alone, just leave him alone. Let him go, let him go, let him go." And I went back to my bed, and what did I do? I cried. I cried because I didn't understand, why is this happening? Why would somebody do this? You know, it's kind of crazy, strange, crazy. So then when I turned 15, I now moved from West Park Junior High to Lindsay Thurber Comprehensive High School, which is now grade 10. I'm 15, and when that happens, Taffy, who is a confidant, that's my dog, at when I was 4 we first got, started getting seizures. And no one in our family dealt with anything. So my mom had to get up in the morning, take Taffy in to get euthanized. And I knew this was happening, but I didn't want to deal with it. I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't have the skills to deal with it. So I remember my mom doing that. I don't know why my dad wouldn't do that. But we didn't really talk about any of it, other than it had happened. Then everyone just went, shh. So I'm stuck with my sadness on that. Now I'll tell you something about my dog Taffy. Now look, this is a little kid that comes up, right? There were so many times when my folks were crying, I had nowhere to go to. And I remember going downstairs to the basement and laying on her side. And she must have sensed there was something wrong. And I remember crying, saying, "Why do they have to fight? Why do they have to fight? Why do they have to fight? I can't even go to a fucking human. I have to go to a dog for that." That's the type of environment I was raised in. And some of you guys have been in that stuff. And this is why you got to do your timeline. Your life has always been important. And I understand there's a lot of shit on this timeline, but you're not the shit. You felt that crappiness that happened to you, but that has got nothing to do with who you are in regards to your worth. But you're stuck with that sensory perception of all the shit that's happened to you. It's not yours. Sorry if I'm a little direct there, but man, I don't know how much to hammer it into people. Shitty things happen to everybody. It's a drawback of humanity. As Jordan Peterson says, life is about suffering. It's not about suffering. You're going to suffer in it. The idea is, can you manage it, negotiate it, regulate it, and get yourself back from it? And that's kind of what we're trying to do for each other. Okay, enough of that preaching. Sorry. Backing off, backing off. So that's kind of it. We'll stop at 16 right now. I have other stuff, but I think I mentioned to you, and I'll fill this out and kind of keep going. But you get the idea. Listen, the other thing is, if you can get pictures of your school, go online, get pictures of your school, get pictures of your first vehicle, okay, and post them on the timeline, because that'll activate a different part of your brain to drop even more memories from you. The interesting thing about our emotional timeline is, what we're worried before you do an emotional timeline is, it's still here. It's still going to happen, whatever the trauma is you have in your past. What you don't connect up with is, you made it through it. It didn't win. You won. How do you know that, Leon? Because I'm standing here looking at you, telling you this stuff. And I tell you the reality, the truth about it. I watched a great video, Zach and B, and Zach basically just told it the way it was. He's a young guy, but man, it was so nice and refreshing to hear somebody talk like that. And I'm probably going to post his video up on Wide Awake Productions Facebook page. So when you do this, remember your spooky stuff, you can do it in a different color and that. And the only reason why I chose to do it in a different color here is because it's the spookier stuff. And the reason why we're talking about, sorry, it's not the spookier stuff, it's the stranger stuff, sorry about that. And the reason why we're doing that is we're starting to introduce our mind and our thinking and our body and our intuitive sense about things that are strangely awkward, and also questions that were strangely awkward, and whether or not those actually got answered or we're just stuck with them, okay? So, on that note, that's all I'm going to say. Anyways, take care of yourselves. You're greatly loved. You have great worth. You've never not had great worth. You just lost your sensory perception of how to feel it in your body. And so you made worthless choices instead of worthwhile choices, because when you were born on this bloody planet, there was a game afoot, and that game you didn't know any rules, and you were hoping the environment around you with those people in the environment were going to play fair. And a lot of us didn't run into very much fairness in regards to how other people played the rules. That hurt us, gave us a sorrowful sense about ourselves, because it did hurt us. We don't know why it hurt us. And then we became very sad. In other words, your primary emotion becomes sadness, heavy depression, low chronic depression, or acute anxiety. Okay, that's all I got to say for this one. Look forward to talking to you guys, hopefully in the next 2 weeks with the video 3 for this series. There will be another video regarding why I vanished for 8 months. A lot of you know why already, but it's more of a thank you to so many of you who were there for me. Take care. Talk to you soon. Bye.
I need you to know something. Yeah, you. No, you. You. Okay, I need you to know you are awesome. I'm not talking about a little bit of awesome. I'm talking about a whole lot of awesome. I'm talking about like incomprehensible awesome. I'm talking about ill, chill, tight, sick, off the hook, over the top, hot as ice kind of awesome. I mean, that's a whole lot of awesome. So I just wanted you to know that today, and know that I love you. You probably don't hear it enough. I just needed you to know that. So this is the Awesome Challenge. Go ahead, either share this and tag somebody in it that you want to let know that you think they're awesome, or just simply share it and let somebody on your timeline, your news feed, or your friends list know that you think they're awesome, that you love them. Why? Because people today just simply don't hear it enough. God bless. Have a very, very awesome kind of day.